Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a Lunch and Learn with K-12 Insight and Flagler Schools. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. You should have received a DoorDash gift card prior to the webinar starting. If for some reason you didn't receive it, check your spam. Sometimes it can get lost in there, but DoorDash gift cards were sent to the email you used for registration. If you do have any questions about the DoorDash, I will put some contact info in the chat and you can reach out as well. And we will be taking questions throughout the webinar, so you can put those into the chat or use the Q&A function, and we'll be monitoring that. And we are also recording the webinar today as well. And I think that covers it for housekeeping, so I will hand it over to Carol. All right, Carol, you can take it away.
Okay, and I apologize, Evan, we're dealing with some storms here where I am. So if I do freeze up, we'll go ahead and let Olivia take over from here. So I apologize if that happens. So we've had some alerts going off here. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. When I was thinking about this conversation over the weekend that we're going to be having today, I was going through a process of cleaning out my 90-year-old mother's storage unit. She lives in a memory care unit. And I came across a box that belonged to my father. And it was letters that his mother and father had written to him when he was serving in World War II. And he was captured over in Germany and was a prisoner of World War II. And his mother was a school teacher and his father was a school board president. And in these letters, they're long letters that they wrote during the time where he was over there, where they wrote to him. They talked about what was happening in the schools. They were talked about the new, my grandmother wrote about the new textbooks, the desk, who's going to be the valedictorian, the upcoming dance. My grandfather wrote about the school board meetings and debate over the budget, who gets along with who's running for re-election. And I found it really interesting because I thought, why were they writing about everything happening over in the schools to their son that was overseas and fighting this war? And it really hit me that the reason they did that is because schools are our connection to our home and our community, right? We know that the schools offered a stabilizing factor during turbulent times. And we saw that offering that reassurance, I think, was important in what they were attempting to do to make sure that he felt connected to his home and his community. We saw how schools rose up to this challenge during the beginning of the pandemic. It was a time when businesses and the world around us was turning upside down, but schools got to work very, very quickly and found creative and new ways to be able to reach the students, continue their education, turn buses into Wi-Fi hotspots in areas, provide meal service to those families in need as well. So the importance of our school districts in our community is that it is vital that the community trust the school districts. And that's where communication really comes into play in our conversation today, is building trust among your community is important, not just internally, but also externally, to be able to have that reassurance and stability in these very troubling times. And I think we can certainly all agree we're still in some troubling times here. Let's go ahead and read a quote from Maya Angelou, if we may. People will forget what you said, what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I think that's the truth. And I think when we look at communication, that holds very true. The outbound communication that we do with our families is vitally important in informing them, alerting them, and as well as building the marketing. We use social media, Instagram, Facebook pages to really showcase all the great things that are happening in our school buildings. And that's important. But that's not where trust is built. Trust is built in a two-way dialogue. Trust is built when that parent, that community member reaches out to you or someone in your district and that response that occurs and the dialogue that occurs. What we call at K-12 Insight, those are trust deposits. Those are opportunities to build trust. When we look at building trust through communications, we know the efficiency of that internal workflow of a district and the management of the communication has a drastic effect on the effectiveness of building trust with their stakeholders. If it's okay, I would like to pose a question to all of you. If you don't mind going ahead and putting this in the chat, if you're willing to share with us. This can be your current district or a previous experience, but what are some changes your district is navigating? And what are some of the barriers you face when building trust in your district? If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and share that in chat with us. So Olivia, are you seeing any chats come through?
Let's just give folks, a couple more seconds.
Okay. So what we're looking for is any type of thoughts you have that are affecting that trust building that may be happening in your district. It's just an opportunity for you to share. Certainly, you don't have to. You don't want to. Okay, Isabella wrote, there are so many channels of communication. Absolutely, right? There's so many different ways. We need to rezone soon, and that's a very controversial topic. Absolutely, that's another one. So I think when we look at the various channels of communication that's happening, controversial topics, both ongoing ones like rezoning or maybe some of the new legislative issues that are happening in our districts, we know that it's important to have an internal workflow that helps mitigate risk so that you have the correct people answering those questions and you have consistent responses in those questions too. We also know that it's important that every voice feels heard, and that helps to build that trust as well. When every voice has a chance to be heard, every stakeholder internally as well, you're going to have more opportunities to communicate and build that trust in your district. So with Let's Talk, where it's a customer service management platform and customer intelligence platform. And when we look at the importance of being able to have a systematic process-driven approach to looking at customer service, we know externally that's going to be important because we want to make sure every voice is heard, not just maybe the loudest ones that are showing up at a board meetings. We want to make sure everybody's voice is heard, even those that aren't comfortable getting up and speaking in front of a group. We know internally managing those workflows to become very efficient allows for timeliness of response and accuracy of the response. You need the correct people answering those questions, and you need those questions to be responded to quickly. But I think what's really important is when you manage and have a customer service management platform, you capture data. There is so much valuable data captured when you are collecting all of this information and have the opportunity in the system to really analyze it and disaggregate this data. It allows district leadership to really be proactive in being able to address issues before they may escalate, as well as that de-escalation process, but it also allows for issues to be escalated that seem to be coming in as well. So we know that the data that's provided and capturing that is going to be very important. So I would like to go ahead and introduce Jason Wheeler right now. If Jason, you can tell us a little bit about Flagler School District and your role there, please.
Sure. I'm with Flagler County School District. We're about halfway between Daytona Beach to the south and St. Augustine to the north, right along I-95 on the east coast of the state. Spent nearly about 20 years in television news, holding almost every position in the newsroom, from building graphics to being a news anchor. Jacob Oliva, who's currently our state's interim Commissioner of Education, decided to free me from that dead end career and create this position within Flagler Schools when he was our superintendent back in 2015. I'm currently a one-person shop, but we're in the process of adding a person, so I'm very happy about that. With that comes a new title. I'm going to be coordinator of communication. Same job, a little bit bump in pay, but more responsibilities. As far as Flagler Schools, though, we have 9 brick and mortar campuses as well as a virtual campus. We are a growing district with more than 13,000 students. And yes, with less than 2 weeks of school to go, we're still getting new students. So that's just crazy. We've used Let's Talk for just over a year now. I looked back this morning, our first message was received April 15th of 2021. And we registered nearly 1,300 dialogues. And I might add, my inbox is clear this morning, Carol.
Very nice. Good. Wonderful. Well, and congratulations as well on your new title. And it's always nice to get a bump in pay. Congratulations to that.
Small.
Well, take what you can get, right?
Yes.
Great. If we could, we're just going to kind of make this a conversation. Is if people have questions, go ahead and put those in chat, and we'll certainly ask Jason to answer those. So what led you to look for a solution to help support communications and customer service in your district?
Yeah, we were intrigued by this product, trying to find the best way to improve the customer service with a very limited staff here in the comms office of one. We launched last April with a small team to support this in our technology group. Of course, we looked at what other districts had done. They've already used it, and we were really envious of what Osceola did. And we tried to model after them. I think we were a little, maybe bit off a little more than we could chew. Right now, we're going to start evaluating when school ends, just how many different categories we have, and maybe scale that back a little bit. But we were thinking big, like we usually do. So, but it's been a great launch, and our community really has embraced this.
Good. And thank you for that. And what I know you mentioned that Let's Talk helps support your rezoning process. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we are experiencing growth here in Flagler County, and our superintendent launched a plan at the beginning of this year to rezone the entire district, all 9 schools. Of course, that led to public listening sessions. But in advance of those sessions, what we did, we went ahead and decided to launch a landing page for rezoning specifically for that. We had dozens and dozens of parents send in their questions, which we were then able to turn into an FAQ section on our website in support of our rezoning efforts prior to those public listening sessions. We also, at the 2 sessions we had, we were able to push parents who attended those listening sessions to place their comments online via QR code. And unfortunately, QR codes are not dying; they're still around. We did have a few parents who were in those sessions that they thanked us afterwards for having that, because they agreed that the plan to rezone the entire district, but they were really uncomfortable with the tenor that was going on in the rooms. In the end, thanks to the number of comments we got in opposition of rezoning the entire district, our superintendent was decided to go ahead and scale back those plans, those original plans, to just include our 2 middle schools and our 2 high schools. So that was in direct response to those comments we got from our stakeholders.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that when we talk about building trust, that certainly builds trust, right? When the plans were changed according to the feedback that you received and the responsiveness of that. So could you talk a little bit about how Let's Talk has supported the communications across the different departments in your district as well?
Yeah, what we did is we pulled out all the departments that we thought would have a major role, a major lift during a rezoning process, and we made separate inboxes for them. So it was great because if a parent had a question, say, about how bus routes and transportation will be handled in the new zones, they could actually pop a question in that specific mailbox there. And then that dialogue will go straight to our transportation department. And so that specific question was able to be answered by a specific person, that specific department, instead of sitting in an inbox waiting for me or somebody else to try to reroute everything. So it really got all of our departments together and in the same effort here, trying to get that clear line of communication out to our parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Managing the workflows. Thank you.
Mhm.
And how does your district leadership use the data based on that stakeholder feedback to inform decision making? I know you shared with us the rezoning. Is there any other ways that you can share with us?
Yeah, we're actually having a half penny or half cent sales tax renewal come up in November. So I'll get that in a second, but we're also in the middle of a lot of stuff going on in the school year. We're in the process of reimagining our dress codes in our schools. And so we again utilized a specific landing page for the dress code, one for parents, one for staff, one for students, so that they could have their voices heard. And so those comments have been used by our dress code committee in drafting that new code, which goes before our board, I think, next month for approval. And in November, as I alluded to at the beginning, that we're going to try to get a renewal of a half cent sales tax, which goes towards technology, including having access to Let's Talk and school safety. We've had this tax for 20 years. It's gone up for a renewal once before. And based on how we've used this on our rezoning and the dress code and the success we got, we are looking at ways to embrace Let's Talk with this heavy lift and trying to see how we can utilize that in our plans moving forward to get this hopefully approved in November.
Wow, good, wonderful. And with the school uniforms, have you, and our school dress codes, have you had many students that have responded?
Oh yeah, a lot of the high school kids, and it's funny because you can tell when it's like a government class or somebody, hey, let's have an assignment, everybody write. So we see a lot of the same messaging. But again, kudos to the kids for reaching out and wanting to have their voices heard.
Absolutely.
And because in years past, you would never write the district office and maybe have a say so in what's going on. So it was an important voice to be heard. And again, having buy-in by the students, no matter what we do with the dress code, they've had that opportunity to put that input in, and they know because they've received a response from us.
Wow, fantastic. Wonderful, thank you. So what are some ways that Flagler has built trust with stakeholders through meaningful dialogues? Is there anything additional with that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we answer them. That's the bottom line. I'll go back to our rezoning plan. We're fortunate to have a superintendent in Kathy Middlestat who seeks out opinions from different stakeholder groups. She listens to those opinions, and in the case of the rezoning plan, she heard them say, "Hey, the support's not there." So she was able to pull back those plans and kind of punt and try to do something new, and that passed. And we didn't really have a whole lot of feedback or talk back when we scaled things back, and that's a big deal because our community understands that, again, as the students did in the dress code situation, that they're listening to us, and sometimes we'll see. And they like having a personalized response. That's the great thing about I'm able to see all those responses that go to the different departments, and that's wonderful because I see these departments taking time to answer that specific question instead of just saying, thank you for your comments. We're recording it and have a great day. A lot of our folks here in the central office, they are taking time and really researching and giving these folks the answer they want. Sometimes you can tell when a question comes in, a dialogue comes in, that they're coming in hot and they are not happy at all. But to see the back and forth, because it is a dialogue, it is going back and forth. They get the answer that to the question they're asking. It may not be the answer they want or expected to hear, but it's an answer nonetheless. And it's just didn't fall on deaf ears. And they may not, again, get the answer they want, but we'll still get a 7 or 8 or 9 on the rating when you get it back. And I think you guys have a couple of responses of what we had before on other topics, and we can throw those up if we can. And it just shows you just what that engagement's like. I appreciate the immediate response. Did not expect that, which that goes to customer service. And I hate that somebody doesn't expect to have an immediate response. It's a great and easy way to get my questions answered. Thank you. Question concern was fully addressed, quick response times. And it's always nice to be heard, especially when it comes to our kids' safety. And that's great because, again, it's not just a one and done. There can be that dialogue and discussion. It's not automatically closed out. You can keep that open and make sure any follow-up questions are answered. And we get a number of those. And that's encouraging on my end because, when when things aren't going your way, and school districts are getting criticized left and right on things we're doing or not doing, we are creating these inroads of communication. And when we need these folks' support, they may not support us when they ask this question, had a dialogue or whatever, but this, I think, will be in the back of their mind. For instance, when we go for the half cent, that, hey, they responded. I may not agree with what they did, but at least they took time out to answer my concerns as best they could.
Yeah, absolutely.
I look at it more like a canary in the coal mine. You can tell when something is a hot button topic, and it may not be on our radar any other place. It may not be in social media. It may not pop up in those parents' Facebook groups. But you start getting inundated with a number of questions and concerns like, oh, okay. Then we can kind of put that fire out earlier than before it turns into a dumpster fire.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I mean, that's certainly, that data is so important, and you wouldn't get that without having that platform of being able to capture all that data.
Definitely.
So what are some of the communication goals that you have for your district? What's like, I know you currently have some, but what are maybe some in the future as well that you may have?
Yeah, we just unveiled a strategic plan middle of this past year, and shocking for everybody, communication is one of those legs of the strategic plan. It always is, it seems like. But that was something that the superintendent really wanted to address. So it's job security for me, I guess. But we want to increase the outreach to our community, keep them informed about our programs, about the news and services of our district. I want to improve internal communications and want to revamp our communication plan. And just so it happens, Let's Talk is playing a part in all of these, especially the internal communication. That was kind of something we didn't know what to expect with that. And I know as a communication person for us, internal communications is something that I've not been able to hit on because it is a one-person shop. I try to work with our HR department to get that up and running, but that's a blind spot in our mirror right now. But this has enabled us to have the different categories on our Let's Talk, and we are getting employees. It's going to the HR side of things and having specific questions. And I know I've spoken with our HR director, and she's very appreciative of this. And she's able to filter these comments to different areas in her department. So that's really helped on her end. And so we're getting there, but it's the first step of trying to improve that.
Good, your internal and external. I think Isabella, you had a question with that. Let me read it. Since it's so important to your strategic plan, how is your team incorporated Let's Talk into your existing daily routines or kind of workflows?
Because I get a little ding every time somebody puts something up, and I try not to look at I have a set time period when I do everything. So my check-in Let's Talk, that sets into that. And I'm trying to coach up some of our folks in the central office building here that, the rating does not affect your job. It's just a number. And because some people they hate having something sitting in their inbox for 3 seconds, and I'm like, knock yourself out, but don't let it overwhelm you. But we do try to set aside, a few minutes every day. I try to do it the first thing in the morning and then in the afternoon. Because we even say, we will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Okay. We try to, keep that expectation. That's not going to be instantaneous. And that's the biggest thing, I think, when it comes to communications, whether you've been doing this brand new or been doing this for a number of years, that I think parents, they're used to that instantaneous response that they see on social media. And this is not that. And I've always told our folks, when it comes to communicating with our stakeholders, that we may not be first, but we will get it right. And that's the important thing, is that it may take us some time to answer a question. And if it's going to take more than 24 to 48 hours, it's easy just to go ahead and put in there and say, we've received this, gotcha. We are working on this. Give me a couple of days to figure this out. And then if you still don't have that answer, please check back and answer that. And I know that sometimes these dialogues kind of get lost. And so we've got the reminders on there saying, please see this and please try to answer this. And I forgot that we had that capability, to be honest with you, until about 2 months ago. because there were a lot of open dialogues, and I enabled that, and all of a sudden that number went like that. So it was a great reminder, because we're all wearing like 15 different hats. I get it. And I'm trying to avoid well, that's a communication thing, you should be doing that. But no, you're the expert in the field on this. That's why this is going to you. So that's why it's important for you to answer this, because that way there's no loss in translation there, because I'm just a stupid TV guy. I'm not an educator. Only had 2 maths. So that's why I lean on them to answer these questions, because they are very specific about this particular topic, and I can't answer that. And these stakeholders deserve to get the right answer.
Yeah. And really, I think that really lends into, the accuracy is so important in that trust building, right? Like you said, you don't always have to agree. The people might not like the answer they get, but the accuracy is extremely important, and making sure the right person's answering that. So thank you for sharing that. So and I will note that when people do submit a dialogue, they will immediately get you've submitted your Let's Talk dialogue, thank you. And then that is the part where it can be customized based on your goals. You'll receive a response within 48 hours or whatever it may be. So I think it's important, because sometimes when people send things, they feel like, I wonder if anyone ever got it, and so they'll send it the next day and whatever until they get.
And I've also got to add, and I forgot to mention this, is that, one of the first things I did also was on our district Facebook page, I connected our Let's Talk to that, so that when questions go to our Facebook page, because you can spend all day trying to find all of those questions, and that way I was able to turn off that part and just transfer it to Let's Talk, and so it all goes into the one pile. Makes a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely streamlines it. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to throw them in. So thank you, Isabella, for that question that you gave us. So, you've kind of touched this on a little bit with the benefits of Let's Talk that you've noticed in your role as a communications professional. I think you kind of shared that with us now. Is there anything else, I'll leave it up to you. Anything else you would like to share?
I just think that each district is different. They have different needs. I know we had a previous superintendent. He was interested in Let's Talk, and he brought it to us and made the pitch to me and our chief of technology, and innovation. And we were interested, but then he retired, and that kind of just went nowhere. And then we had the new superintendent, Kathy Middlestadt, came in, and we didn't know where she fell on this. So she went to a FASA FADS conference and spoke with the K-12 Insight folks in the Let's Talk. And she came back and said, I've got this great idea. This is wonderful. And we're like, yes, we know about it. So we were sold. It was an easy pitch for her. And I think if you look across the state of Florida, that you see districts of all different sizes using Let's Talk. And I just think for where I am in my district, it works. Especially, it just makes sense for me, because I'm the one person. So, I can't answer for every single district, but again, we looked at what Osceola did, and they're much larger than we are. We're just a little piddly 13,000 kids. And it was very encouraging what they're doing in some of the larger districts. And you kind of don't want to fall into, let's be like them, because we don't have the manpower and stuff to do that. But, it doesn't hurt to dream big. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. And if anybody has any questions, so we have 11 school districts across Florida that currently use it. And as you mentioned, there are all different size districts, small districts, up to some of the largest school districts. And I think most of the districts that we work with, it is a focus on communications and creating that culture of collaboration that's so important. And so that's why they seek out Let's Talk. So we do have a question. How is Let's Talk more efficient or beneficial than email? That's a great question, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, because the email, if it comes to me, then then I got to farm it out to somebody else, and then are they in or not? It's nice that we set this so it goes right to that person, that department. And for instance, like our custodial, our transportation, they're off site, they're different sites. So this will go straight to them. And it's you're able to curate this, and as opposed to sitting in in an email inbox, because I know if your inbox is like mine, there's so much in there. So it's nice to be able to log on to Let's Talk and see it's a specific question about your department from a stakeholder. So that's how we see it. And then, we've got three stories here, so we have offices on 3 floors. So it's nice to be able to put it into where it needs to go in the person's hand that needs to go right then and there, instead of having to have someone else play traffic cop and direct it someplace else.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we found too, if you've had, I don't know if you had this previously before Let's Talk, but oftentimes when a community member or a parent is reaching out, they don't know who they're supposed to reach out to. So they may click 5 different emails to send that message to. And it kind of gets rerouted of who gets that correct one. So I think it's so important that the Let's Talk is topic based. So it's easier for the stakeholder to be able to figure out exactly, this is the topic I have a question on, and that gets then directed to the correct person.
Like you have a teaching, if you have a teaching and learning question, you have the teaching and learning landing page, but under that you have elementary, middle, high, VPK, ESE. So you're able to put those subtopics under there so that it's very specific. And so it just goes right to that person who can answer that question. Which again, if you go to the landing page, I have a question. Well, let's look and see where it belongs. So I've just a shot in the dark that, I happen to know someone's name and how our email system works with the flaglerschools.com ending there. So it's a lot more efficient that way, we're finding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you were building those workflows, tell me a little bit how you worked with your customer service manager with Ellie on building those workflows for you on the back end with your district.
Yeah, she was super helpful. She gave us the small version of it, and then stupid us started looking around, and that's when we stumbled across Osceola, and like, that's what we want. And we even trimmed it back a little bit from all what Osceola had. And we may, again, like I said earlier, we may trim back even more, because I want to look back at the numbers and the data and see what's being used, what's not being used, because we don't want to inundate our stakeholders with so many choices. We want to, where are they going most? And that's what we do with everything with our website as well. What's being used, what's not being used, we'll sunset what's not being used and such. So, but Ellie was super helpful because we knew just enough to be dangerous. That makes sense. And so she was able to walk us back a little bit and let's pump the brakes a little bit here and let's walk before you can run. And now with the year under our belt, we're looking at possibly going to the bot, the FAQs and everything, and maybe adding additional things to our suite here. So it wasn't a very steep learning curve. But she was able to hold our hand through this and walk us through this and very happy. It was very quick, but when we turned it on to when we started getting those dialogues, it wasn't a whole lot of time. And we were encouraged by that. It's like, hey, this thing actually works. So good. Very happy with the whole process.
Yeah, and that's great that, that customization is so important, because as you go on, it changes, right? As new topics come in, things like that customization is going to constantly change. And so it's important to have that flexibility of being able to do that.
And then creating the extra landing pages, because we didn't even think about that when we first turned everything on. And it's just like, well, how can we use Let's Talk for this? Like, well, let me look. And boom, set up another landing page. And then another person's like, well, can we do it for this? Can we do it for this? And so just success begets success. And so we're learning something new every day, which is great.
Wonderful. Good. Well, thank you. What other questions? If you want to go ahead and put them in your chat, we have a few more minutes left to kind of take questions from those of you that are out there. Had some good ones come in. I'll give everyone a minute if you want to start typing those in. So if you have a district that maybe is considering this or looking into it, navigating it, is there any advice that you could kind of share with them on using Let's Talk, or what?
Yeah, I would, take a look at what questions you're getting wherever else you're getting them from, whether it's, your social media pages, email, and what topics are on people's minds, and try to steer towards that. That's one thing we learned. And I saw a question from Jennifer there. We tried other languages. We've not, but I'm not sure. I think you guys had the translation.
We do have a
services?
translation. Yeah, we have so there's a translation for when the communication comes in, and it immediately translates, and then the response can be translated as well. So there is translation.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
available.
But yeah, and again, I think one of the byproducts, and I mentioned it earlier, was that being able to get a heads up of there is an issue out there before it becoming a huge issue. And I think folks are now, it's been on a year now, and people are a lot more comfortable, and they know it's there. We've got the tab on our website, contact us, and it's just an easy, just one button and boom, there you go. And then being able to tie it in when we did the rezoning with the QR code, and folks being able to be in a listening session and still register their comments. And I think the one that really resonated to us are the ones who were not comfortable stepping in front of a microphone in front of a room of people who didn't really share their views on that. They were still able to register their views. And that was powerful. And a couple of folks I know personally who did that. And I reached out to them afterwards, and we were very appreciative of that, as they were to us.
Thank you. So you talked a little bit about how it's promoted. So let's talk on the page. We have another question though. How is it helped with promoting transparent communications in your district? I know that is certainly a topic right now that's happening in districts, is promoting the transparent communications.
It's easily accessible. You're not hiding behind an email wall, and it's all the departments are on there. So that's where we see that no matter what, and it's all of our major departments in our district. We haven't rolled this out to the individual schools. I just think because it's hard for us to get regular communications out of our schools because they're so busy. It's just easier to streamline it and have it come to the district offices here. But having those different departments on there so that parents have that accessibility. And really, I think a lot of times when they're contacting the district office, they're trying to go above someone's head. And so it gives them the feeling of, I went over my principal's head. But even if we get a concern, we're still able to go back to the principal and let it work its way through that way. So we still encourage the use of the right communication tree. But this may just, get it jump started from up here and then shift it back down to where it needs to go. And majority of times that when that happens, it works. And we get a follow-up email from a principal's like, we were not told. This is new to us. So it's nice to be able to bring them in on the conversation.
Okay, thank you. What other questions do we have? So thank you. Olivia did provide clarification. The translation tools can translate dialogues up to 13 languages, and additional language options are also available. Any other questions? We have just a few minutes left. I know you had mentioned Osceola a few times, and obviously using them as a model for some of the expansion you want to do. What we do know is that Osceola currently, they actually have, we talked about the transparency and communication. They've actually created a Let's Talk button that is for anybody that's looking to review books or curriculum materials. And that actually then provides, really kind of gets those principals and other people off the hook, because you have one way to direct them, right? All that communication that comes in from the community, a parent or whoever wants to have a book reviewed or wants to question a curriculum, there's one process, there's one way they go through. It connects them to the correct form that they need to fill out, rather than having multiple people answering a question, and maybe inconsistencies in that as well can happen. So
Yeah, we ran across that too when because we did our policy. Our teaching and learning department did a great job, and they kind of unveiled something on our website. And after that was unveiled, that's when I stumbled across what Osceola had done. And I told our folks like, hey, we got this. So it's still relatively new. We'll see how it all fleshes out. It may shift to that Let's Talk platform next year, but we're going to see how everything works.
Yeah, absolutely. One place to reach. So I think we can, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to put them in. We just have a minute or two left here. I just want to let you know that we appreciate you being here today and taking time. Thank you so much, Jason, for sharing your experience and your expertise in communications.
I appreciate the opportunity, Carol. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone received your DoorDash gift card. If you did not, please email me. I'll be happy to make sure that you get that for attending today. Also, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to kind of look at what Let's Talk is about more in depth, see the kind of the magic that happens behind the scenes with it, I'll be happy to share that with you. Go ahead and email me. My email is on the slide here. If there's no further questions, I want to thank you. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, and we appreciate you. All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.